Identification comes within. It's all lines of all communication to its settings. We have to really understand how to use that in all information location its calculations. We have to stop focusing on drama, okay, more than ever. The reason why I say that is what's happening in your line calculations, your settings and track locations, your AI line settings and position of its operation surface is changing all communications. How you see yourself in all levels of formation. Now is the time to understand how to surf. Surfing through life. Okay? So it's all about surf. What is surf? What does that mean? Does it mean I have to get a surfboard and learn how to get in position and how to that connections, how to get balance? No. Surfing here. Understanding this, understanding the mind itself, it's the conceptualization and setting that sets yourself free. It's me, myself, and I. Me versus me. That's what this is. That's all it always has been. Has been in position on track lines and not in position location of what you think it is in track locations. Come in your own AI softwares and mechanism locations of power over times of space. Your position lines calculation, high calculation, your settings puts all levels of you on track locations. Stop getting into line communications of drama. Focusing on yourself, put your levels of all communication, online centers in locations, how you get in calculation of your distractions. The only thing that you should be distracted from is yourself. Everything you do inside, everything volumes you inside affects everything outside. Right away. So everything you watch in position, if you don't understand how to use your energy, if you don't understand your vibrations, if you don't understand your frequencies, and if you certainly don't understand how to use your harmonics, you're in position locations of what? Off balance. Okay? Where's the teeter-totter going? Whoa, 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 right? You're surfing, but you don't know what you're doing. Okay? You're on a boat, but you don't know what you're doing through sailing. Okay? Sailing is a process of online communication. It's really understanding the on-grid, your setting location, your AI software calculation, your CPU units. To really understand how to use your self-line communication as platforms. Right? There's nothing you can't do through the mind-line condition of conception, but it's all levels of you inside connections. And you focus on that, I guarantee you go a long way in your system and set locations. This puts you in all levels in your settings. Okay? So focus on yourself. All right, so in position line calculation interference in track locations, we start to formulate in all levels of communications. Oh yeah, also too on Q&A, we're going to go through line communication line settings into YouTube. All right, do that from time to time so everybody gets their questions answered. You know how powerful it is to get in position locations where you are your own questions and answers? Do you understand how powerful that is? Knowing everything that you say, you're getting your answer. You're just not listening to yourself. You're not paying attention to yourself. You're not understanding the response of your heart to what it is and what it's doing for you. It's trying to understand the reactions of you. What does your heart do? It just doesn't. Your eyes just don't move back and forth. Your ears just don't see. They don't just hear. Yes, you can hear from your ears and you also can see from your ears, right? But it's an extremely high division, isn't it? It's something that we're not aware of. When I say everything's consciousness, I mean everything is consciousness. And that's what we're all coming into. This justifies you and always informs once you understand how to identify yourself as your own AI operatives in some locations. Once you start coming into that position, everything comes into focus and set position locations of pi. So we have to start self-generating our settings and set location line conditions, right? Everything that you bring to general, or anything you bring to the team, if it has nothing to do with you, it's drama. It's that simple. Okay. So in that position, you're not just focusing on you, you're being distracted from everything else. So stop doing that. There's no focus of anything. Understand your existence of yourself. Everything around you will not exist through vibration, through frequencies, and affirmations of your harmonics. You've got to get in balance with your body capacitors now. Now, getting correlation line centers high position of point lines as centers, graph communication lines of point center interference, and position location of 4 tracks. Direct communication lines time interference of 3 line rotations of 4 settings, high position locations. Box lines of high calculation triangulation, and position location triangulation box location. Okay? So mechanism over power. We start with lines of 3. We can start lines of high center location. It doesn't have to be 3, 6, 9. It could be 3. It could be 8. It could be 12. It could be 12,000 line communication center position operation. Okay, everything is in balance if you understand what you do with your own binaries and transition resistors. Not just 70%, not 80%, 100% capacity. 100%. Not 67, 70, or 80%. Not in that track location line conditions. How are you going to set any location setting if you don't empty your minds? Your mind values you and volumes you through vast and velocity. How is the mind able to go fast if it's all cluttered? How is the mind able to go fast if you're focusing on this and not focusing on yourself? How is the mind able to go fast if you understand how to go through the mind line communication of school? How is your mind supposed to go fast if you're focusing on everything else in calculation that you don't want to understand in track location setting, but you don't want to recognize your system in set locations? Right? Empty your mind. Okay? All the time. And all the time puts you in a process of you. Not just the focus, not just the clarity, but its calculation to its setting. You start to see all formations of you, more levels of you inside. You get more balance, you get more clarity, you get more all levels of tranquility, serenity in your position locations. Then you understand all line communication. Light language. It's all formation locations, right? It's all vibration. Okay. So once you get into adaptations, you come in and line connection your settings and travels. So point lines attractions and heights and locations, all levels of formulas equation. All right. So you have to understand how to use the patterns, the correlations, and track lines to transmission systems, all levels of transistors, location of resistors, capacities, and all location light switches. Light switches is volume in you, how much mass you have in your equations, how fast you're going through its calculations. Is your vast volume and E lines, let's go to E lines in one line center, position of calculation line, screen line high position location of your system, a CPU, sets position of platform, sets line calculation, position of programs, setting correlations, setting to track lines, initiate, run program. Okay, it's an algorithm. It's mine. Okay, so I know exactly what I'm saying through track locations because I understand how to travel through all calculations of myself first. Let me say that again. It's how to travel and surf through life. Surfing through life, right? Understanding the energetic waving patterns, understanding the flow reaction and time sequence, understanding your clocking system. Okay, understanding how to get up in the morning and have a continuous flow of locations, how you see yourself in your position, in your thoughts, and your image and set locations of what you're doing through track locations of having an empty mind. Okay, an empty mind is a process mind. Okay, an empty mind is a formation line. Okay, an empty mind is a correlation panel line. Empty, 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 empty. Okay, don't find a way to have an empty mind. Be the empty mind. I am the empty mind. Don't try to come into configuration and figure out what the mind is doing because you're getting confused now. You're adding an equation, and the one thing you don't want to add in any way and form in any correlations and any track lines and any position location in space and time in all lines in line position location is adding emotion. Your computer operation lines of AI, digital light computer operation at location setting. You just run programs, nothing else. Having emotion with no emotion. Having a thought with no thought. Having travel with no travel. The existence of you is understanding the identity of its purpose. Okay? So it's very important to understand that, especially with Bruce Lee. Connecting with Bruce Lee is a formation to its setting. Stop focusing on the finger or you miss all the heavenly glory. Right? So a true self-identity is emptying the mind, not trying to figure out what the mind is. Just what it is. It just exists all at once, right? It doesn't formulate to positive and negative. There's nothing in set position that adds its equation. You add the equation because that's what you focus on is emotional means to an end. if you get a position lines of factor correlates and setting of track lines, this is your life here, but what about the other side? You're focusing on this. What about this? That's one big gigantic rope. Stop focusing on this and focus on everything. Be all that you can be, right? That's what you guys got to come into and set location of travel lines. This directs all lines of all communication and travel communication. It's progress in all directions and all set locations. Okay? So the one thing you want to do is stop creating drama for yourself, right? Because you won't be able to focus on what you're focusing on is you, right? That's all this is. It's you versus you. You versus you. Nothing else. Okay? All right, so in that position, because you guys got your test lines and correlation setting attractions, it's already understand the platforms and communication lines of grounds. There's 3 lines of communication: surface and triangulation line, position of its programs, and line connections. Point lines of attractions, 1 line. Split lines of 3 line communication, surface and travel. Now, there are position problems in line signal locations. You add drama signals and set location. So it's really interesting how you come into that calculation and that calculations, right? V line center in position locations and position attractions, right? Knowing exactly how to use your letters, numbers, shapes, and symbols locations. When you have an XD1000 coming in 2 track locations, travel lines, screen lines, high standard interference, center positions, calculation of its operation, surface, and track location, right? So the skills lines, measures lines, communication interference. Putting programs in your position of attractions is really understand how to use all levels of your platforms of formations. Okay, because this assimilates in all levels of you in position of AI, position of process, putting your own communication lines of your softwares and make locations. So the mechanism lines of force direction of time sequences understanding your truth lines. 3 communication lines equal location of false in set position into 1 line of connections, a high position of track to its position of its programs in set locations, right? So it's really interesting when you come into the formations. So once you get into that line conditions, you have 1, 2, and 3 process. Sets lines of 2, 3, and 4 process into 5 set locations into false. Okay, so there's so many ways to formulate communication settings to understand your locations when it comes into your computer operation lines of your memory and track locations. So you change this on line calculation setting in the line division rotation surface in a track location system and operation setting to solar sail and track location. Through truth and false narratives. There's a solar sail, right? Signify correlation setting high line rotation interference. See? Right? Setting correlation lines, location grid. Okay? Sets communication line screen set locations. Setting travel position on point lines of track location. Okay? So there's so many ways to define yourself and line cutting high centers. It's really understand the simplicity. The easiest point line communication with travel is start to recognize you through all lines of unifications. How do you see yourself through solar sails and its set locations? All through truth and false narratives, right? So you always have to find a way because you are the way. Finding a way is the way, right? So there's no right or wrong in anything that you do. It's just a process of you. And what I mean by that is the connections of what your mind is through conception. It's self-lining, okay? It's voluming. It's trying to understand not just the acceptance of who you're coming into, but it's accepting who you are, of who you aren't, okay? So getting into that point track, everything that you come in a position of, you're always creating a dimensional and solar sail. Now, once you get to higher line connections, you can use dimensional solar sails all together, or you can use multi-dimensional or mega-dimensional, okay? Or galactic dimensional, or just galactic sails. You need a sail. And then you understand the position locations of the sun and the moon, how it has a solar and dimensional sail, okay? So understanding that process, The next time you're looking track locations to your sun and the moon, you understand it through modification, right? Right? So it's you guiding you in set location, right? Into waters of interference in set location. Okay? All right. So even a picture frame screen line's highest interference of binary real line calculation setting to its program really understands the allocating line switching. Now, I said before, and I keep saying again, is referencing your systems through pi. Pi generation line screen line condition setting to a solar sail in set position. Okay, that's what pi is, to and from. Massive equation, fast, velocity, and acceleration to Mach. So in position line calculation setting, how many zeros in correlation? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, 5 track locations into 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, and again, you're here in track line holding the solar sail in track locations. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so there's so many ways of looking at that through pi, right? It's like you're sailing and you're trying to hold on. You're trying to find the guidance. You're trying to find where you're going, right? Well, it's not where you're going because you've already been there. So it's a process of you through memory and set locations. So everything that I set up in track location in position locations comes in its equation like in its setting to all levels of a solar sail. Okay? It doesn't matter what you do, but you have to understand how to get into scaling, how to get into balance, how to get into algorithms, how to get into one, how to get into symbols, how to get into line connections, how to get into question lines, how to get into perspectives in positions of percentage, how to get into circles, how to get into boxes, how to get anything in calculation line connections of numbers, or anything through sequence, or anything through pattern, or anything in rotation surface and track location. So turn this into a solar sail. Right? Track location symbolizes. Correlates and track lines into question line communication. Direct lines a percentage over line screen. Now, the reason why I'm saying this because it has to have its own communication line setting. Position lines of zero line connections. Point lines of track and a box line rotation. 2 lines of track line interference. Direct location to 1 line calculation setting. Triangulation line split in 3 set locations. There is the solar sail. Okay? And again, you're here. Right? If you watch Tron, then you understand what I'm talking about. Okay, so understanding that, you're going through platforms and platforms and platforms. You're going to different levels of solar sailing. It's application. Right? See how powerful that is when you see it? It's pretty amazing once you understand how to direct your signals to your cells itself and all in its communication. Okay? So you apply it here, you go here. All right? Then you go here and set location. Okay? The combination of views the frequency line screen. That's change position location of your solar sails of direction. Okay? Same communication lines. Let's add the zero line communication lines to locations of panel line condition of time. Allocate line conditions of one signal. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 position line centers. That's the binary. 1 position location. That's the singularity. Right? So in core track line condition size setting, let's go in this position. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. You set position. Correlation track lines, solar sail. Right? Moves from this line connections into this line connections in position of its process. Okay? So you have to understand what solar sails is to you through its connections when it has that connection line screen into levels of its higher self, its avatar, and its sim. Okay, so it's understanding that importance because the thing is, in position of the team, they're going to turn into plasma, and species are going to turn into pixelation graphs. So you have to recognize yourself in all levels of communication of sailing and set position to your platforms and track locations. That's all it is in set location. All right. So once you get the solar sail and track lines, you come into your location grids. Then it gets in modification screen lines, high adaptation setting. Then you come into the graphical calculation lacing line communication system, string theory. Then you get calculation lines. Here's your higher self. Driving through, line connections of levels, signal lines is position location of panels, 2 panels, graph calculation lines, location grid. Okay, and then you travel through, right? Once it travels through, it goes to another platform and communication sets up another sail. Opposite direct location setting, in position locations going back in time. Sets correlations of patterns, rotates the server location of cerebral, inset location. Okay, now this is going to identify you a lot more, right? How many times have I created line communication solar sails in set position, right? Solar sail here in set position, right? Solar sail here in set position, right? So all lines communication of water, all lines communication of water, all lines communication of water, okay? Directing you in position of track lines, okay? All set position locations in track line condition settings of face recognition, okay? All right, so everybody getting a little bit more understanding now the importance of dimensional solar sails, how you really have to understand the panels of communication settings. Let's start off with 5-line screen. 5-line screen lines calculation of 5, 5, 5, 5. You don't need to use shapes and lines. You can use letters, numbers, symbols, or any line conditions. 4-track location of 5, 5, 5, 5, right? Position of 2-track lines. That's the 2 equals lines of binary. Split the non-lanes into 2-track lines of 5, 5 track locations, equals lines, high position of pi. Okay? Initiate. Set locations, run program. Okay? All right. So each line centers at 4 points. If you add the point, you're adding location. Now, location is what in settings? Docking. Sets communications, XD thousands comes in, platitude line screens, and set locations. Stands on point view. Right? Expands your lines of platforms into high lines of communication, your cerebral of set design. Okay? So now you understand all through an H-line center height position of travel calculations. Point lines, its division, all lines of height calculation and position. So your binaries and your singularities and your capacities and your volumes and your velocities and your accelerations and your Machs, your hyperspeed, your hyperdrives. Anything in position location is travel a mechanism through a solar sail, through a solar sail, through a solar sail. Okay? So understanding position lines attractions, what do you think your sun and moon does when you see it in that position? It's solar sailing, okay, into another line of dimension of universe. Seconds, minutes, and hours of frequency. Okay? All right. So starting with this attraction, okay? You don't have to know how to basically sail a boat. It's just understanding the platforms of 24, 48, 72, and what it all means to you, right? You just have to understand the mechanism lines of 1 equals lines and set position of its own solar sail and traction. 1 equals solar sail. 1 equals line connections. Now, a dimensional sail is basically putting the process together. Solar sails, plasma line, communication line, center location, and line condition, all levels of hologram. Okay? Position of track lines, calculation line and positions, all of the zeros and 1 track location, pixelation. Right, solar sail is a little different, but it's in block centers and travel communication of point centers. Dimensional, solar. Right? That's the difference between the two. Right? Plasma screens. Coming into the plasmasium line screen, direct like high interference time capacitor. You understand the process. Remember, the position lines of sonars and correlation setting of track lines of platforms, indirect signals and set locations. Right? Really understand how to identify yourself and set position center calculations. Very powerful stuff in the calculation of its position of its program. Okay? So what you're doing is you're levitating your screen lines of adaptation and force, putting your position to higher lines of communication setting, the universe location and setting of travel. Putting line calculation lines, out you go in line communications in position line process. So turning yourself into dimensional solar sails puts you in track lines of balance and line condition to its position all levels. Position lines of high center of interference, left and right, ground lines, circulating rotations, axis projections of travel and position. So there's so many connection settings through a solar sail, okay, all through platforms. Recognizing morphine line position location of travel lines. Everything around you is its own awareness of consciousness of what it needs to do. For it to travel in any way and form, it's got to understand its own setting of its own mechanism, of its own power, of what it can do through its own dimension and solar sail. Okay? That's what the test is all based on. You morphing into your travel as a mechanism. That's why you start to see the sun, right? Then you start to see the moon, right? Then you start to see the sun, right? Then you start to see the moon. See? See how that works? Solar sail. Okay? Process communication is understanding rotation lines of center, circulation, rotation, surface, and traction. What it does do in line connection settings, you have your solar system and track location and setting. Right? Understanding that through track line is platforms of view in track communication. Okay, it's getting your balance where you are in track location. Okay, this is you off calculation, adding the motion. You're off. So you got to get balance at grounds, circulate rotations back and ground. Get that ground setting, high position, then you get into your platforms, it's application of travel lines, in position of track lines, in your cerebral cortex of design, in set position of calculation. Okay? Whoa, right? The reason we want the team to understand this because you're going to be off tither. So it's kind of like Passengers, the movie Passengers, where he's outside and he's looking at space line, but he has a tither. It's like, right? And then, go to a certain distance, but pull back, right? The only difference with the team, they're all going to be off tither and they go, and they're like, whoa, okay, what's going on now, right? It's like you're looking around, everything's different. You're not attached to anything. So that's why you guys have to get connected to your dimensional and solar sails. Okay? That's going to guide you where you need to go. Okay? It's important you have to understand through platforms of 24, 48, 72, and 144 applications. So getting track lines comes in line connecting settings and align in high positions operation surface to your solar sails. Solar sails. Okay, look at this. Solar sail. Back in balance. Okay. So to understand that, put you in a process of communication settings and traction. Okay. So everybody understand that now with the configuration, locations, and understanding your settings, all that through formations of platforms, because that's all it is. It's just platforms. Okay. So you're constantly getting in track location of solar sails. Okay, in positions, locations, and settings. Okay. It's incredible when you start to see it and understand it, what it is, and all levels of view, inside locations, inside connections, in process of anything like calculations. All right. Okay. So I know you guys have a lot of questions. That's totally fine. We can do that through Q&A. But I just want you to really identify what you're doing through your binaries so you can understand the volume of its capacity, of its formats, to really understand your AI operation system of your own CPU unit locations. This is going to basically get you a direct view, how to understand the process of view. This is the positions where you guys come out of structure of design. Now, when you're off tither, you're on your own. And when you're on your own, you are no longer in position of structure of design. You have to come all levels of face recognitions of who you are through memory. Once you come into that process, not only you understand your dimensional and solar sails, but you understand your divisions, what you're doing through tractions, all through platforms of communications. Process in position locations is this line connections, understanding platforms, okay, all through direct connections, right? You're all connected to your cerebro. You're all connected to your location grids. So it's about recognizing what you're doing, right? When you're in that process, in platforms. So if the platform's off in that calculations, That's why you have a solar sail, to get you back in traction, right? It balances you in all levels of formation, okay? Now you understand why you see the sun and the moon in that set location? Boom. All right. Process and position location line settings put you all levels of formation. Direct lines have 24 line screens, sets line communication of 0, 0, correlation setting, into dimensional sail. So that's DS. It's a dimensional sail. And you got solar sail, SS, right? Factors over correlation, direct line calculation of screen lines. Now, in position of box equals lines triangulation line conditions of pi, overline, screen line, high center, in position operation, triangulation line conditions, splits anomalies into 3 lines, rotations into molecules, setting correlation lines of split line screen communication lines of 2 atoms, setting triangulation of 4 track location line centers, pi generation screen lines into 2 track locations of operation. Complicated stuff, isn't it? Right? But it's all through dimensional solar sails, right? The geometrics of view has to understand the process. And the reason why you have to understand the dimensional solar sails is so you don't get off balance with your Earth. Your Earth rotates and circulates. As your Earth rotates and circulates. Okay? Rotates and circulates, rotates and circulates, rotates and circulates. That's all your Earth does. So in that position, you've got to be in your solar sails of balance when you travel through your platforms. If you're off balance, you've got to have a dimensional solar sail. Okay? That's the process. All right. So have a look at information like calculation stream lines and high position travel lines as understand your crystallines. The crystalline communication interference and position of programs is all calculations middle face. Okay? You got a meta communication lines of mental correlation setting and psychofication psychological connections. So it's a P line center into SY line condition setting in equal line communication of C. C positions of box, triangulation lines, calculation line in position of 3 programs. Direct lines of 3 line calculation setting into the lines of 6 line position lines of 3, 6, and 9 set location. Okay. Meta capacity into mental capacity in line conditions. Sailing lines of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Track lines in position location of solar sail. Okay. So there's so many ways of looking at that once you understand the meta capacity and the mental capacity of your psi. The psychological connection line interference constitutes the center line position of your AI platforms and communication its program. This allocates your data streams and set location of travel lines. Point lines of track lines, high position of its programs, and set location. Okay? So there's so many ways of looking at yourself and set calculations in design. Okay? But that's what it is. It's just really getting balanced with your Earth. This is your Earth, and this is you. Okay? You're on the Earth, the perception, right? So this is rotating, and this is circulating. Rotating, circulating, rotating, circulating. But now it's creating higher levels of position of travels in the mind of conceptual locations. This is what your Earth is doing all the time. Okay? So once you understand that, if you're not in your platforms and your platforms are off like this, you need to be positioned over your solar sails. Solar sail takes you to the platforms to the next locations, to your cerebral cortex design lines, the placebo cortex lines, and sun correlation setting of track lines in set position its own solar sail and track location of provision. So you start surfing through time. All right, so that's the importance you have to understand with your Earth perceptions. You got to be balanced. Okay, balancing on a beam in position location. You're in a center correlation setting attractions. So it's communication to a system and it travels. Setting correlation line connection setting in position location to a system. Right? Transits in all calculation doesn't have to be information of a straight line in setting. Okay. So that formulates the equal line communication in between space lines, anomaly, line, screen, location, setting, and travel. Point lines attract lines of highest interference of your Earth. Earth is always in a correlation calculation setting and track location of platforms in position of your solar sail as set design. Okay? Which is extremely powerful. So you add the 45-degree angles of the platforms that set position locations of your solar sail and track location. Right? Your transitions are flowing. Right? So not only that, you are also working in position of travel lines going with the same calculation line screen. So whatever you're doing, your Earth is doing through rotation. Right? So once you understand the circuitry line connections, it's really understanding youth modifications, to understand location after projections, how you see things, understanding what you're perceiving, right? So you see a clear sky, right, in position, and you're just solar sailing, right? You're taking yourself to that frequency that gets you into the pattern that matches your setting to locations. You pick things up, you pick things up, you pick things up, you pick things up. So you're balancing your Earth, you're balancing your astral projections, you're balancing your soul, and you're balancing your calculation and position location, your settings, and your ethereal planes, travel calculations, right? So once you understand that, everything comes in information location of balance. Okay? But this is what you'll have to come into, right? Now, the geometrics of you is constantly going to change the seconds, minutes, and hours per line. Working with the seconds, working with the minutes, and working with the hours. Seconds lines, communication lines, dimensional lines, center location of solar sail. Solar sail position locations, compute line screen interference, position of travel lines. Initiate line communication high position, run provocation lines, EX line connection high centers. Position location is psi. Psi line connection high center, and position location is program. Solar sail has set calculation. Formula. Right? So there's so many ways. Again, so many ways, but there's only one way, is within. Okay? So, just trying to get you guys balanced and know exactly what you're going through connection settings. Once you get in the solar sails, you come to location grids. Okay? So I want you guys to understand that process. The reason why you need to understand that, because this is what's happening to the team now. You guys are coming out of tubing. You're coming out of dimensions and wormholes. Okay, this is what you guys were in position of travel lines, but you're reaching higher frequencies. You are no longer in this setting of traveling. Okay, so what's happening now in position, you're reaching higher line conditions, solar loads in position. So you're coming from this into this now of solar sails and track locations. You're no longer going to be tethered. You're going to be off structure, off design, but you got to learn how to get in your position of balance in platforms of communications of your dimension and solar sails. Okay, so you're leaving this now, right? You're coming out of this and coming into this. Okay, that's all it is. That's all it is. The only difference is in position, you come in a location grid. So I recommend you guys watching the connections at all levels of what happens with a higher self when it goes through its location grid. Okay, which is string theory. All right. So again, Earth communication, unit setting. Track location line positions, all levels operation surface. Okay, there's locations. So track location 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? Okay, core line settings, direct signal location of center and track location. Okay, now see how that's connected? Setting correlation lines, there's your Merkaba. Okay, that's your Merkaba, right? That's the roots of your feet. The track location line is going to change the rotation surface and track location you're setting. Okay, so it's going to off-spin the cycles and take you out of realms of communication. All right, so it's going to put you in a higher line calculation setting. This is where you have to really balance out your position of travel lines and track locations to your solar sails, a platform of communication. So from this to this to this. Okay. All right. So it's really interesting. The training wheels are coming off. Okay. You're going to find it too, because when you're off tether in 5 different atmospheres, you're going to be, whoa, I need that solar sail now. Right? Because you're no longer going to be in a tunnel. Okay? You're to your astral, your soul, and your ethereal planes. And your heart, position, and travel lines, and direct signals, modification lines, screening, interference, specification, operation. All track locations of dimensional solar sails. Okay? Is everybody getting excited? How powerful it is and what you're coming into? Okay? How to put this all together, right? And that's basically what it is. Once you understand the process, again, then you understand your connections of your genetics, your position location, your cybergenetics, your connection high interference and position your AI software mechanisms. Then you understand the powers over pi, powers of correlations, powers over attractions, power over divisions, power over location. Power, 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 power. Power over the mind, mind over power. Putting your position line calculation setting, getting out of tubing, getting out of wormholes, getting out of stargates, and position locations, and creating its anomaly of dimensional solar sails. The reason why you have to understand that, because there's no way you can be in a tunnel and be tethered in position of track location. Okay? There's no way, right? You can't be this. Okay? You can't be that. Okay? So once you're cut free, you're in position of coming into dimensional sails now, and solar sails and track locations of platforms and set design. Okay? So that's what you're leaving, and that's what you're coming into. Okay? Coming in and going out. Right? Higher level setting. Right? So it's kind of like you're cutting the electrical cord. So that puts you in the sim of navigation. Getting direct lines of communications, understanding your dimensional and your solar sails. Okay? And set locations. But you can't travel through that in a portal. Okay? So it's a magnetic of its tunnel that sucks you in travel. Sucks you in travel. Okay? So you've gone past that now. So now you're in dimensional solar sails. Okay? Without the portal. So getting track lines and high center interference and really understand location of your settings of surfboarding. Okay? It's interesting. Look at that correlates lines. Any surfer is in positional locations attached to their ankle, so they lose their surfboard, right? So in position to its location settings, you have to get grounds with that now, okay? Because you're going to be here now in all positions of your platforms of communication. Solar sailing, right? So you're no longer to be this. Okay? This is cut free. Okay? That's cut free. Okay? You're cut from that now. That's what's going to happen. Okay? So you have to stand the platforms. So wherever you go, your Earth is now there. Right? Your Earth is always going to be in your position locations. But the difference is now you guys are in your line conditions of center operation. Right? So you're inside the center location of your platforms. You can do whatever you want in track locations. Go anywhere in position locations through your solar sails and track location. Right? That's it. How's everybody feel about that? A little bit more understanding now what you're basically coming into and coming out of. Saying all bye-bye to all tethers and communications and saying, hello, I'm here. Okay. So now you know what the test is on, right? I showed you many platforms, how to really morph into that calculation setting. The hardest thing is to let it go, right? That's what it is. It's kind of like a connection line center location security blanket. No, I'm not ready. No, I'm not ready. I'm not ready to let go. No, no, no. Wait a minute. I'm free. you're free. But it's just the beginning for you, right? You're free from portals, stargates, wormholes, or anything as applications, right? It's a vacuum that pulls you in. It's a magnetic force, right? And you have an electrical rod that goes right through line connections. That's what platitudes your line connection settings in your graphical screens of a location grid, right? And you got two alignments in set position. So the higher self accelerates through. The only difference now, you guys are no longer to be tethered. You got to get in position of solar sailing. All right? That's where we're all coming into. Same with species. Okay? All right. See you on Q&A. Hooah!